In a dramatic video, Senator Ted Cruz stood at the border of the United States and Mexico near the Rio Grande and produced what appears to be some kind of Vice-style mini-doc talking about how he can see the smugglers right over there. It says, I can hear the cartel members taunting us. And I got to be honest, I laughed a whole lot when I saw this. Now, I want to be fair. I actually think it's legitimate if Ted Cruz and other Republicans want to go down to the border and show America what's happening. I just find it kind of funny that we're now like 10 years out from the Vice era and we have senators producing these kinds of videos. But I got to tell you, it probably works. It is dramatic. It's enticing. It's shocking. It's scary. It's exhilarating. This might be some of the most effective politicking we've seen in a long time. And I think the whole thing is silly. Democrats are apparently blasting Republicans for doing this, calling it a political stunt. But I think the whole thing is actually, I got to be honest, it's probably effective in getting that message out. Now, let's get serious. If a non-American came to me and said, Tim, can you explain to me what the Senate in your country does? Well, I could give them the straight answer. Our senators represent the states to the federal government, and our representatives, they represent the people. So senators are the upper chamber of the legislative body. And then, hold on. And they're going to say to me, but why is Ted Cruz down at the river producing this mini doc? Why are Democrats fighting performatively and not doing anything? Why has it been that Ted Cruz and Josh Hawley and other Republicans have roasted big tech CEOs on and off every other month or whatever for years, and nothing has gotten done? And I will tell them, honestly, I don't know. Maybe what they really do is perform for us to make it seem like they're actually doing things. And in turn, we don't actually get substantive policy change. We get Ted Cruz down at the border saying, I can hear the cartel members taunting us. I'm not trying to be mean. I do think this is important. We've long said that politics is downstream from culture. Okay, so Ted Cruz and Republicans producing a video like this, it actually may be effective. I have to wonder, though, if that's what's happening. Are we going to see Republicans actually take action at the federal level? Because it seems like, for the most part, they don't really fight for anything. I know Democrats say the opposite is true. They say Republicans are willing to take and steal and do whatever to get what they want. But I think back to the past 4 years and the most important issues that would have helped the Republicans, they didn't do anything about. Now, Donald Trump did take action. Donald Trump did stop the surge at the border. And now we're seeing one of the stupidest and weirdest but predictable things. The establishment Democrat types are acting like Joe Biden is not at fault. There's no surge at the border, and that his press conference was perfect. It's not. There is a crisis. And according to the Wall Street Journal, we are looking at the worst illegal immigrant surge we may have seen in 20 years. So I'll tell you this. I don't know what Ted Cruz should be doing. Maybe this is something very important, to produce commentary and culture and actually show Americans what's going on. And this may be an actually effective way to get things done. But I am just frustrated because for all of the performative nonsense that I've seen from politicians, including Ted Cruz, I've not seen any substantive change. And I'm not confident that this will actually do anything. Though I'll say this much more important or effective, in my opinion, than yelling at Jack Dorsey or, Mark Zuckerberg. Let's read about what they actually found. And then I'll give you the real data, because for every criticism that I can, lay to the Republicans for not getting things done, I do think it's important to actually show people what's happening. And if you're not going to get it from leftist media, well, then I suppose Ted Cruz had no option but to just go and do this. Forgive me if I still think it's funny because he's like hosting a Vice style documentary. Sure. Before we get started, though, my friends, head over to timcast.com and become a member to get access to exclusive members-only segments, some of which are probably a little over the top and offensive. But hey, we're allowed to say a lot of things on timcast.com we don't say on YouTube. So we just had Jeremy Hambley from The Quartering yesterday in an exclusive member-only post. We had Aaron Berg, comedian. We had comedian Chrissy Mayer. And we even had Kurt Schlichter, Jack Murphy. To be honest, we got a big library of content now with a ton of full-on episodes. Some are weird, some are interesting, some are about God and whatever. Go to timcast.com, become a member, help support the show in the event that we get banned from YouTube or the internet. We will keep producing here, and with your support, we will expand and do more. And don't forget to like, share, subscribe, hit that notification bell. Let's read the story from the Daily Mail. Quote, I can hear cartel members taunting us. Ted Cruz leads group of 18 Republican senators on midnight hunt for migrants and smugglers trying to cross the Rio Grande. They say The Texas senator is leading one of a dueling group of lawmakers to the border on Friday to visit facilities holding migrant teens. Democratic Rep. Joaquin Castro of Texas is leading a group of House Democrats on their own trek. The Republican senators are in the Rio Grande Valley to draw attention to what they call President Joe Biden's border crisis. The Biden administration repeatedly has refused to describe the situation as a crisis amid record high surges of migrants. The Rio Grande Valley is seeing more of the largest numbers of migrants crossing into the U.S. I do believe, I'll pause for a second here, that Jen Psaki did refer to it as a crisis. Maybe it wasn't intentional, but my understanding is that she did. They say Cruz posted videos on his Twitter feed showing him on the bank of the Rio Grande in the dark, surrounded by tall grass or weeds, watching what he claims were smugglers trying to get migrants across the water and into the U.S. Quote, "That's Mexico right over there. And you can see there are 3 smugglers right there," Cruz is heard saying, standing on the Mexico side looking at us. He also said those smugglers were taunting the senators on the U.S. side. The footage is hard to see, showing grass and the dark river with few flashes of light. Cruz said those were the smugglers' flashlights. He posted another dramatic video describing it as live footage from the banks of the Rio Grande that showed him standing on the river's edge, giving a report on what he and the Republicans saw on their midnight march. Quote, "So it's past midnight, and I'm standing on the shore of the Rio Grande. The water is right behind me down. I'm down on the Texas border, along with 18 senators. We made the trip to see the crisis that is playing out," Cruz said as he stood in the weeds on the shoreline. Dogs could be heard barking in the background as he spoke. Here's what I love about these hosted little documentaries, because I used to do a bunch of them for Vice. For some reason, people always start their sentence with the word "so," and I never understood why. I thought it was a bad habit. They'll turn the camera on and go, "So here I am. Why don't you say, 'We're here at the border'? Why do you need to add that?" I don't know. But I highlight this because of its absurdity, because it really is like Ted Cruz is doing. He's doing journalism. Let's be real. You know what I mean? Should he be in Washington writing up legislation? Maybe. Should he be voting on things? Sure. But I'm not confident that Congress is getting anything done. And if politics is downstream from culture, Ted Cruz actually going out and doing journalism, as silly as it may seem to all of us, I don't know, maybe it's actually a good thing. They go on to say, quote, "On the other side of the river is Mexico. The other side of the river we have been listening to and seeing cartel members, human traffickers right on the other side of the river, waving flashlights, yelling and taunting Americans, taunting the Border Patrol, because they know that under the current policy, the Biden administration, they can flood over here." And that's just true, man. Look, they want to roast Donald Trump over the kids in cages thing. And now that it's Joe Biden, many of these establishment Democrat types are saying it's not kids in cages. They're better facilities. They're migrant holding centers. The left, the progressives, still critical of Joe Biden over this. However, not nearly as critical as they should be. Recently, there were some posts from Project Veritas. They put out exclusive photos from inside these camps. And James O'Keefe said, "AOC, are you going to speak out against this?" I highlighted on Twitter that AOC did in fact speak out against this, but there was a good point brought up to counter this, saying, where is she now? It seems performative. Under Trump, she waved her arms in the air and she screamed all day and night. Under Biden, she tweeted a couple times. And now what? The Democrats that are going there, in my opinion, will likely come back and be like, you know what? Joe Biden's doing a great job. Hopefully they don't. Hopefully they come out and say, do better. But I'll tell you this. Donald Trump was not wrong to detain these children, and Joe Biden is not wrong to reopen these facilities to detain children. It is nightmarish. It is horrible. I understand. But the alternative is worse. I have maintained that position under Trump. I will maintain that under Biden. I'm not going to roast Biden simply because I don't like that he's a Democrat. I'm not a fan of Joe Biden. But if something makes sense and needs to be done, it needs to be done. The problem is all of these Democrats who did scream about Trump and then changed their positions, and they did, and we'll get to them. They say, Cruz blasted Biden's policies for the increase in migration. Republicans claim it was Biden's executive orders that rolled back stricter border control policies put in place by Trump that led to the surge. Quote, "This is a humanitarian crisis," the Texas senator said. "It's a public health crisis. The illegal immigrants who are being released, they're testing positive for COVID-19 at 7 times higher than the American population. And it's a national security crisis. And it's time for the Biden administration to put an end to it and stop sanctioning lawless chaos on our southern border." Let me just tell you, there's a meme going around and they say, when you finally realize that they opened the border before our states during a pandemic, then you'll notice you've been played. Something to that effect. It's not that they've opened the borders, but they've certainly relaxed these policies in a very strange way. At a time when our states are shuttered, a variety of them, many red states are opening back up, and travel is extremely restricted, particularly in the UK. Man, they'll fine you if you try and leave your country. It's strange that Joe Biden would roll back policies from Trump, would release people into the U.S. These people should be quarantined. They don't do it. Something ain't right. They say Cruz was joined by fellow Texas Senator John Cornyn, South Carolina Senator Lindsey Graham, Maine Senator Susan Collins, and others in his travels. The senators are scheduled to hold a press conference later Friday. Cornyn posted a photo of the group of lawmakers after their tour, writing, "Before we began our full-day touring critical areas around the southern border, the senators I brought down to Texas wanted to thank the CBP RGV Midnight Patrol for all their hard work they are doing to keep our nation safe amidst this crisis." And the Senate Republicans' official Twitter account posted photos and an update from the expedition. 1 a.m. on our southern border, 18 senators are here with Border Patrol on their night shift. We saw the massive influx of migrant crossings, countless women and children. We were heckled by cartels. This is a humanitarian crisis, and Joe Biden needs to address it immediately. Beto O'Rourke, the former Democratic congressman who lives in El Paso and lost his bid to unseat Cruz, retweeted it with a mocking reply. "Thank God you survived the heckling." Democrats, who have blamed the Trump administration for the problems at the border, blasted the trip as a political stunt. Quote, "In a desperate attempt to mislead the country, world-renowned political clown Ted Cruz and his hapless sidekick John Cornyn are bringing their show on the road with their latest political stunt," the Democratic National Committee said in a statement on Friday. I'm not here for that. I'm not here for that. Sorry. No. This is my problem with the Democrats. By all means, I can make fun of Ted Cruz for doing a Vice documentary, and I can say, well, at least he's showing some people some stuff. And what do we get from Kamala Harris? She laughed. Not an exaggeration. They said, "Will you visit the border?" And she went, "Well, not today." What is funny? Somebody died recently, a child. I'm sick of this, okay? The kids who are detained by Joe Biden, Joe Biden is not wrong to do that. He deserves the credit, in my opinion, for his administration taking these kids in because we need to make sure they are in some kind of regulated facility where they can stay safe. But these Democrats, that mock situation, Kamala Harris, who laughs about it, and Beto O'Rourke says, thank God you survived the heckling. You think this is funny? They turn it into stupid politics. I'm not here for it. I'm not. I'm sick of this. You want to criticize Ted Cruz? By all means, say, "Ted, we get it. There are problems we are working to solve. It is not helped by your political stunt." Hey, that might be an appropriate criticism, right? Now, I don't actually agree with that. I do think Ted Cruz is providing a service by filming this. I still think it's kind of funny. But for them to come out and just mock and belittle, they don't care about these people. I am not convinced they do. They actually, I believe Beto campaigned when he was running for president. He campaigned in Mexico. They encourage this crisis. I'm sick of it. It seems like when you see Ted Cruz, they may be, again, maybe silly, this thing they're doing, but they're taking it seriously, very seriously. And Beto O'Rourke is acting like human trafficking is some joke. I'm sick of this, man. I really am. It is a crisis. Let me tell you, I want every single migrant who wants to come to this country to be able to do so. But there is a reason we go through a process. We don't want children dying, man. Is that funny to you, Beto? Is this funny to people, the photos that we've seen? It's not to me. So when Donald Trump and his administration and the CBP were picking up these kids and bringing them to these facilities, it was the right move. There was some kid who was found sick in the desert. And CBP brought this kid to a facility where the kid eventually died. And they blamed CBP for it. That kid would have died alone in the desert. Now we're hearing another story about another kid dying. And Beto and these Democrats just mock and belittle the Republicans. Gotta own the Republicans. Good on Joe Biden. Good on Joe Biden for having these facilities up and running and bringing these kids somewhere. Bad on Joe Biden for pulling back on these policies that is creating this pull factor. And the media is lying about this. The Wall Street Journal says, men looking for work drive surge in illegal crossings at the U.S. border. Most of those apprehended are men in search of jobs, with the pandemic easing in the U.S. and fewer opportunities at home. They say the surge in illegal immigration across the southern U.S. border is shaping up to be the biggest in 20 years, unlike migrant surges in 2019 and 2014, which were predominantly made up of Central American families and unaccompanied children. So far, this one is being driven by individual adults. I'd like to show you this image. We can see that right now, at the beginning of 2021, there is a massive spike of single adults and some unaccompanied children. Among unaccompanied children and families, the number is actually massive. Now, under Donald Trump, we still had a surge. That's true. Trump wanted to build the wall, and the surge was bigger. It really was. Back at the end of, mid 2019, we saw that there was a massive spike in families and single adults, but, the spike of single adults wasn't that big, trying to come to this country. And Donald Trump got strict, and the surge dropped. It's not the same. This drop off is very different from other years. It is not a seasonal repetition. Now, there is seasonal repetition where in the colder months where it's safer to travel, they do. It's darker, so in some sense, they're less likely to be seen. And it's also not as hot, so it's safer in that capacity. Under Donald Trump, there were serious problems. Donald Trump enacted policies which helped pull this crisis down. Under Joe Biden, the crisis is getting worse, but more importantly, it's happening faster. So what you need to understand is Donald Trump was not a saint and he was not perfect in his policies to curtail illegal immigration, but he took it seriously and he was very strict. Joe Biden rescinded many of these orders or these policies, said they were bad. And now things are shaping up to be worse than we've seen in 20 years because the peak that is happening now is happening much earlier than it did last time around. And that's what we're seeing across the board. I'd like to show you this from Chief Patrol Agent Austin Scaro. He says, over 2,240 illegal aliens have been encountered in Del Rio sector over the past 3 days alone. These arrests contribute to the nearly 300% increase in apprehensions over the last year. This increase is far higher than the normal seasonal fluctuations we traditionally see. So here's what you will hear from on the left. There's no surge. Joe Biden said, truth is nothing changed. It's the winter, it happens. That's not true. ABC and NBC have reported that migrants are saying in no uncertain terms that Joe Biden is giving them an opportunity and now's their chance. And what we're seeing is a massive increase. Were there spikes under Trump? Yes. Did Trump solve all the problems? Of course not. But he took it seriously and he solved some of the problems. I don't think Trump nailed it. He wanted to build a big, beautiful wall from sea to shining sea, but he was criticized for apprehending unaccompanied minors and families. The left accused him of putting kids in cages. And now that Joe Biden is doing it, many of the establishment Democrat types are just giving Joe Biden a free pass. So tell me, which is it? Was it a crisis then? Is it a crisis now? When will we take this seriously? And why is it that as soon as Joe Biden gets into office, unaccompanied minors surge? Because that wasn't happening under Trump. Adults were, though. That surge seemed to have been happening in 2020. Check this out. Center for American Progress. They reposted a story that came from the Washington Post. A lie. It says there's no migrant surge at the U.S. southern border. Here's the data. That's a lie. An outright lie published by the Washington Post. Now, there's a reason why I'm showing you the Center for American Progress instead of the Washington Post. It says the above excerpt was originally published in the Washington Post. Please click here to view the full article. Interesting. Here's what they say. Last week at the U.S. border with Mexico, House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy declared that the recent increase in unaccompanied minors attempting to enter the U.S. was a crisis created by the presidential policies of this new administration. We looked at data from U.S. Customs and Border Protection to see whether there's a crisis or even a surge, as many news outlets have characterized it. We analyzed monthly CBP data from 2012 to now and found no crisis or surge that can be attributed to the Biden administration policies. Rather, the current increase in apprehensions fits a predictable pattern of seasonal changes in undocumented immigration, combined with a backlog of demand because of 2020's coronavirus border closure. Maybe. But they said no surge. I just showed you the graph. It's a huge spike. It's massive. It's going to rival May 2019 under Trump, which again, under Trump, there were surges. When Donald Trump sought to end these problems with new policies, Joe Biden reversed these. And now we've heard from illegal immigrants. It's because of that they're coming. These all play a role. I'm not saying Joe Biden is responsible for literally every single person, but he's contributing. That's the point. Here's the updated Washington Post story. The migrant surge at the U.S. southern border is actually a predictable pattern. Oh, what's that? That's right. They changed the story. They changed the headline because evidence reveals the usual seasonal bump, plus some of the people who waited during the pandemic. Is that it? They're arguing that Donald Trump's policies didn't actually stop the flow of migrants. In fact, it was just the pandemic. Okay, maybe. But Donald Trump shut down the southern border. He had been trying to for some time. I guess he had to use COVID to do it. So, okay. But it would be ridiculous to claim that Donald Trump did not contribute to stopping the flow of much of these illegal immigrants. The Washington Post says the Post has been updated because they changed the name. Fox News says Washington Post changes headline about no migrant surge, acknowledges record flow of unaccompanied minors at border. Left-wing columnist Jennifer Rubin heavily cited the analysis to scold reporters about their border coverage. They say the initial headline of the piece from its Monkey Cage blog read, "There's no migrant surge at the U.S. southern border. Here's the data." The headline now is, "The migrant surge at the U.S. southern border is actually a predictable pattern." While the piece says it was updated, it does not specify how. The story also included notable changes in its text, as noted by Hot Air's John Sexton. One sentence was changed from, quote, "What we're seeing, in other words, isn't a surge or crisis, but a predictable seasonal shift." They changed this to, quote, "What we're seeing right now is a predictable seasonal shift." The revised piece also includes a section about the number of unaccompanied minors that wasn't originally there. What is more unusual at this moment is the increase in border crossings by unaccompanied minors, which appears to be more than just a seasonal pattern. Oh, so it's true. There's a crisis. It is kids. That has been the centerpiece of the news the entire time. So the Washington Post actually admits there is a humanitarian crisis, and it's the unaccompanied minors. Amazing. They say the Post now reads, "This poses a more distinctive challenge for the Biden administration, although it is also possible that there will be a similar drop in crossings by minors during the summer months. It still suggested there was no evidence Biden administration policies had contributed to the surge. Although in the next sentence, it acknowledges smugglers had claimed it would be easier to get into the country once Trump was out of office. However, the Biden administration created a carve-out specifically for minors in its Title 42 authority to expel migrants at the border. The new portion of the analysis also linked to another Washington Post story that says the Biden administration is facing a rush with no precedent involving children and teenaged migrants. Border officials are on pace to take in more than 17,000 minors this month, which would be a record. I am sick of the lies, man. Why can't they just be honest? You know what I mean? Be honest and stand up for what you believe in. Hey, my name's Tim Poole. I think that we should tax the rich. I think we should have a high progressive tax because I don't like George Soros and Mackenzie Bezos, and I don't like the Mercers flooding the zone to crush working class voices. That's my opinion. I might be wrong because I'm not a genius, and maybe you disagree. Hey, let's have an honest conversation about it. I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of people comment below and saying, Tim, you're wrong about this one, but hey, at least you're being honest about what you believe. Instead, what we get is the media lying every step of the way. My friends, I would like to present you the stupidest, mind-numbing bit of evidence that the media is a trash rag full of lying grifter hypocrites. I give you the Washington Post's Jennifer Rubin. Oh, she's supposed to be a conservative. Then all of a sudden she found herself defending Democrats. Why? Because she is a grifter. I love it. They're like, Tim Poole's a grifter, man. He's lying to you. It's like, okay, I've got how many videos where I talk about why I think a progressive tax is good and we need to tax the wealthy at a higher rate to stop them from flooding the zone and shutting out working class voices? That's my honest opinion. And if people don't agree with it, they're free to disagree with me, and sometimes they do. Jennifer Rubin, look at this. The Washington Post. Biden excels at his first news conference. The media embarrass themselves. Is this a joke? Jennifer Rubin is now mocking her own newspaper because she's so desperate to just be the pro-Democrat darling. She's supposed to be a conservative. What are this woman's principles? How about principles lack thereof? She didn't have any. I've explained in great detail how Biden is not wrong for detaining these kids. These kids need a place to go, otherwise they die. And Trump wasn't wrong either. I don't like Joe Biden. Y'all know I don't like Joe Biden, but I will at least give him credit or defend him when he's doing something that needs to be done. He recently sanctioned China. Maybe it's not going to work out like we hope, but I will give respect to the Biden administration for doing something, right? Instead, this is what our media apparatus is. They will smear Trump and lie about him every step of the way, and they will do everything to lie to protect Joe Biden, and I am sick of it. So much so, she's actually mocking the media. I absolutely love this. My friends, I'd like to give you now the glory that is Joe Biden's press conference. The Daily Mail says photos show Joe Biden, 78, relied on 14-point font prompt cards during his first press conference, including one with headshots of reporters he planned to call on, lost his train of thought at times. Here's the photo. Joe Biden is holding up a picture of reporters' faces, and there are numbers next to their faces, apparently for who he is supposed to call on, their names. And I wouldn't be surprised if it included some questions, because he also had notes about what he was going to say. Here's another card that talks about, it says the president, infrastructure. The United States now ranks 13th globally. China spends 3 times more on infrastructure, bridges. Hey, I like that. My respect to Joe Biden for focusing on infrastructure. A lot of gun rights people were angry. When are you going to talk about gun rights? And Joe Biden's like, no, we're going to do infrastructure. I agree. We got an infrastructure problem. That's great. The point is, first, I will say this. I don't care that Joe Biden used notes. I really don't. A lot of people use notes. Effectively, I do. When I do these segments, I've got all of these stories pulled up so I can cite them for you. Now, it's a combination of things. It keeps my thoughts aligned. I have everything lined up on my computer so that I can go through the story and talk about what I think is important. But also, it's citation. I want to make sure that you know I'm referencing something NewsGuard certified, by the way. Now, if Joe Biden was actually being instructed to call on specific reporters because he's not doing the job himself, I think that's worthy of criticism. For Jennifer Rubin to come out and be like, Joe Biden excels at his first news conference. No, he didn't. It was milquetoast and tepid at best, and actually kind of bad. It was symbolic more than anything. It wasn't a real press conference. Joe Biden stuttered and stumbled, and there was one point where he just lost his train of thought completely and just stopped talking. It's being memed now. And then you see Joe Scarborough on MSNBC. They highlight Hannity on Fox News saying, Joe couldn't even finish his sentence. He's like, oh, what? Where am I? Where are my notes? And then Scarborough shows a moment of Joe Biden somewhat stuttering a little bit, but completing his thought to manipulate and to gaslight. The media in this country is lying to you, okay? I do not think Fox News gets a free pass on this one either, but they're not nearly as bad. Now, I'm not a big fan of Sean Hannity. I'm not a fan of the show. I don't watch it. Laura Ingraham either. I don't watch Rachel Maddow. I don't watch Chris Hayes. I do sometimes watch Tucker Carlson, but look, although I think Tucker Carlson's probably the best guy on TV, I'm still not the biggest fan or proponent of him, though I give him a 6 out of 10 in my opinion. I'd recommend him. I really would, because he does excel at articulating his thoughts and representing, people in this country better than anyone else. I think the other Fox News hosts are just tribal rage, and that's true for MSNBC. There's a lot of things about Tucker Carlson I disagree with. To see a story like this, they're lying in your face. Look at this. Rubin writes, after weeks of whining, the White House press corps got its first official Biden presidential news conference on Thursday. President Biden used the event to pledge, yeah, we get it. Asked how hard he would work for his policy goals, he responded that all of my focus so far has been on COVID-19 recovery. On immigration, he made clear that crowded facilities at the southern border are not the result of policy change from his administration or the fact that migrants see him as a nice guy. He pointed out that there was a higher surge under his predecessor last spring, which certainly was not because migrants believed the former president was a nice guy. Well, I don't know exactly why there was a surge, but many thought it was because Trump was going to lock things down, and that if you wanted to get in, you had to come now. We also saw many migrant caravans. People got it in their heads, if we come together, it'll work. I go on to say, on immigration, yada, yada, it happens every single solitary year, Biden noted. In his lengthy response to questions about the border, he showed his skill in de-escalating issues. One message came across loud and clear. We're building back up the capacity that should have been maintained and built upon by Trump. That Trump dismantled. It's going to take time. One reporter mentioned a 9-year-old she had seen at the border and asked if Biden's messaging was contributing to the problem. No, he responded, again offering a detailed answer about the problems refugees face in their home countries. Prodded with the question about whether overcrowding was acceptable, he responded, come on, of course it was unacceptable. He said listing steps he's taking to find more beds for unaccompanied minors. The repeated questions on the same topic were tiresome and a poor use of precious time. When reporters, look at this, they try as they might to seem tough, the media did not succeed in knocking Biden off message. Biden spoke in great detail, blah, 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 blah. The media is finally asking questions. They got rid of some of the grandstanding nonsense reporters, not even real reporters. And now we can see these sycophantic, faux conservative, never Trump types are continuing the grift. It's all they have. They will say Joe Biden is the best, no matter what he does. Donald Trump is bad for a lot of reasons. He's good for some reasons. Joe Biden is bad for a lot of reasons. He's good for very few reasons. It's not hard to be honest, man. Maybe there are a lot of people who genuinely believe Biden is a saint who can do no wrong. But this woman contradicts herself. Biden is not perfect. Neither was Trump. And we can praise them when they do good jobs. But it is a problem. And I will say this about anybody. Mind this, my friends. Anybody who refuses to criticize someone for doing something bad, question whether or not they're being honest with you. And you will find this among the left and the right, or whatever political tribe. It should not be hard. And I tell you this, among the conservatives I talk to and I see on social media, it tends to be the exception, not the rule, that they're sycophantic. As for the left, it tends to be the rule and not the exception. There are many people on the left who have no problem criticizing Biden because they never liked him, people like AOC. But now you can see people like Rubin. You see, she's full of it. She's like, oh, I don't really like, support Democrats, but Trump is just so bad. Now it's, well, Biden can do no wrong. Then you do have the sycophantic Trump supporters else. Well, Trump must be doing it for a reason. But I see among conservatives the honesty that Trump ain't perfect. Don't like that about Trump. I guess that one's okay. I like him more than I don't like him. I see a lot of people who say Trump is perfect and can do no wrong. And I think that's nuts. Among Biden, you see a lot of these establishment types will just say Biden can do no wrong. Drop it. Now, we kind of drifted from the initial story, but the reality is the migrant crisis is getting bad. So good on the Republicans for going down and trying to highlight it. I think it's a little silly and kind of funny, and I wonder what it is they could or should be doing. But if the journalists aren't going to do it, I suppose Ted Cruz has to. I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up tonight at 8 p.m. live, youtube.com/TimCastIRL. The Quartering will be joining us, so make sure you check it out, and we'll see you all then.